When a con man sold the Eiffel Tower to scrap dealers twice in 1925, in that same year, a statesman in London said that the paper money was backed by gold in the treasury, and next in line comes the crypto and NFT frenzy we experienced roughly a century later. People paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for an ape image, for simple codes made up only of pixels. What all of them rested on was the same thing: people believing not in value itself, but in the story built around that value. Places and times are different, but the system is the same. What we usually buy is the narrative that something is valuable. Value is constructed in people's minds, through belief, through prestige, through authority, through the approval of the crowd. Many of us have always been ready to buy these stories, and there have always been, and always will be, those trying to sell them. The year 1925 witnessed two of the strangest examples of this at the same time. In one, there was a fake government official. In the other, a real statesman. The story in Paris is built on lies, but Victor Lustig was not an ordinary pickpocket or a criminal who used brute force. His weapon was not a gun, it was human psychology. When he arrived in Paris in 1925, newspapers were talking about the maintenance costs of the Eiffel Tower and the increasingly expensive burden of repairing the structure. Lustig saw this detail as an opportunity. He had fake letterhead papers prepared bearing the official seal of the French state, introduced himself as a high-ranking official acting on behalf of the government, and invited the leading scrap metal dealers of Paris to a secret meeting at the luxurious Hôtel de Crillon. There he told them that due to engineering problems and political sensitivities, the dismantling of the Eiffel Tower was being planned, and that for this reason, the tower would be sold to the highest bidder. Some were suspicious, but the most important thing was not accuracy anyway. It was the credibility of the scene. The hotel was real. The paper looked real. The title seemed real. And most importantly, the opportunity being offered was enormous. Lustig bought not only a scrap dealer's greed, but also the desire to be the chosen person with access to privileged information. In the end, he took the money and disappeared. Based on my research and what is conveyed in the sources, I can say that he tried this trick more than once. I think what makes this story powerful is not actually that the Eiffel Tower was sold. What is truly powerful is that no one realized that no one had really bought the Eiffel Tower. What was sold there was not iron. What was sold was the image of state authority. What was sold was the feeling of secret knowledge. What was sold was the privilege of "I know before everyone else does." Lustig did not give people a tower. He gave them a chance to step into a story, and that story, for a while, was truly worth money. In the same year, on the other side of the English Channel, a bigger stage had been set. This time, not in a hotel room, but in the heart of the state. This time, not with a fake seal, but with real authority. On April 28, 1925, Winston Churchill announced that Britain was returning to the gold standard. The government did not present this merely as a technical monetary policy move. It defended it as a great order-building step in terms of international trade, stability, and confidence. This was not an outright fraud like what Victor Lustig did. No one was printing fake documents. No one was introducing himself with a title he did not have. Everything was legal. Everything was official. Everything was being done in the name of the state. And yet, at the center of the debate was the same question. What is it that makes a value real? For Churchill and the defenders of the period, the answer was clear. The pound had to be repegged to gold so that Britain could regain the respected monetary order it had before the war. But critics, especially economists, thought that this was exactly where the problem began. Because the issue was not so much returning to gold, but the level at which it was being returned. The problem was that the pound was being repegged at the pre-war parity. According to many assessments, this level made the pound excessively valuable, placed pressure on the domestic economy, and left adjustment to be achieved by pushing wages and prices downward. So in Paris, Lustig was fabricating value by acting like the state. In London, the state was defending value with its real authority. These two things are not the same, but despite not being the same, at one point they draw close to each other. Because at the center of both is this: the carrying of value through belief rather than matter. In Lustig's case, this belief existed in the minds of a few scrap dealers. In Churchill's case, this belief existed in the monetary memory of an empire. In one, the target was narrow and the result was personal. In the other, the target was global and the result was social. Churchill's decision was seen that day by many circles as discipline, stability, and prestige, but the cost became more visible in a short time. Warnings increased that this choice could harm export sectors in particular. Deflationary pressure grew, and economic tension turned into a much broader social cost. In short, in Paris, there was a small prey. In London, a much larger economic story touched the lives of millions. The subtle point that needs attention here is this: it would not be right to place Victor Lustig and Winston Churchill in the same moral category. One was a fraudster, the other was an elected decision-maker of the state. But the point of the story is not to make them the same person anyway. The real power lies in the fact that both show us the same weak point. People most of the time do not invest in naked reality. People invest in the persuasive framework woven around reality. Sometimes that framework is a fake seal. Sometimes it is the rhetoric of national prestige. And sometimes it is the feeling that this system is too big, therefore it must be true. That is why the story does not end in 1925. It only changes form for the next one. A century later, no one needed to sell the Eiffel Tower anymore. No one needed to peg a currency to gold and try to load it with its old prestige anymore either. Because the digital age found a faster way of producing value, the simultaneous belief of the crowd. And roughly a century later, the same stage was set again. This time, there was neither a tower nor gold. There were only pixels, codes, and people ready to pay fortunes for them. In the NFT frenzy of 2021, people began paying unimaginable amounts for completely digital assets. There was price, there was demand, there was prestige, there was a feeling of official ownership. And most importantly, once again, there was a story. To understand the NFT frenzy, knowing technology alone is not enough. To understand it, one must turn to the past. What repeats here is not the object, but human behavior. In one era, people thought they could buy a tower. In one era, they believed that an empire's currency could regain its former weight. And in one era, they accepted that a digital image on a screen could count as a fortune simply because everyone looked at it and said, yes, this is valuable. And here is where the common sentence of the whole story is hidden. Humanity, most of the time, does not buy reality. It buys what it wants to be real. Victor Lustig realized this very early. States, from time to time, used another version of it. Modern markets, meanwhile, reproduced it through speed, technology, and crowd psychology. So the issue is not only fraudsters, the issue is how people construct value. Sometimes value is not inside the metal. Sometimes it is not on the banknote. Sometimes it is not even in the blockchain record. Value, most of the time, is first formed in the mind. Then the crowd approves it. Then the price appears. And in the end, everyone assumes that it had already been real from the beginning.